Good morning to you and your listeners.
Appreciate you coming in this morning. You were a household name here for many years, and then for the last 4 years it's been Jerome Who, right?
Right,
So,
Been
uh,
quiet.
a reprieve.
yeah, got a little rest during the last 4 years.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, being in politics, being on any commission or council or whatever. I know my dad was for 3 terms on 2 different boards, but that's grueling, especially when you're trying to work.
You know, it is grueling, and I think it speaks to the commitment and the love of the people that try to do that of their community.
Okay. So you're decided you lost the last election 4 years
Correct.
ago, and you decided to come back, make a comeback.
I did. I think that it's a very opportunistic um, time right now because we do have these challenges that I think I'm up to the task in a unique way. And I can bring some of the things that we need.
The Ward 1, and that's what you're running for again, the downtown area, so to speak. It has the same number of eligible voters in it that the other wards have, but only about 200 people vote typically, right?
That's correct.
2,200 vote.
Okay.
It's kind of easy to get elected there, I would imagine, with fewer votes, having to obtain fewer votes, because you can get to know every one of those 200 people, can't you?
That is an advantage, really, when you can walk the ward and have face-to-face contact.
So everybody knows you in the ward, in the downtown. Every one of the voters who vote knows you.
The problem is that when you're going door to door, you're going to every registered voter. That's how we use the list. We don't just shoot for the 200 people who voted last time. I'm going to try every registered voter. So it's an equivalent task. And, you know, we have civilians living on Camp Lejeune. That's in my ward. And so you have to reach out to those persons too.
How many
It,
of those vote?
I don't have a number for
Okay.
you, but and that's the problem. It's like fishing in a pond or fishing in the ocean. So you know, the bigger the pool with the fewer fish, it's more difficult, can be more challenging to decipher that.
Right. Okay. You came under fire over for a number of years, the Daily News and other individuals as well, and your competition from time to time. Anytime anybody running against you said, this guy doesn't even live in Jacksonville.
I'm and I hope people pay particular attention to that. I'm the only certified resident in the city of Jacksonville, as far as any candidate for anything, because when my residency was challenged, the Attorney General for the state of North Carolina addressed it and said, Councilman Willingham is a resident. So nobody else has had that challenge, and I welcome all challenges.
How much time do you spend in Jacksonville?
Well, with teleworking, I can spend every day in Jacksonville. Yeah.
Are you doing that? Or you?
I'm on leave right now, but before I was teleworking.
Okay. So you were in Jacksonville though.
Yeah.
Somehow, is it when you filed to run? Did you list your address in Utah?
No, I listed my address in Jacksonville.
Okay.
They did that at the Board of Elections, and the state board is looking into that because, let me tell you,
What's Utah got to do with it?
I'll tell you,
Okay.
the I consider myself very committed to the city of Jacksonville. I worked in Utah. I started to bring the medals that I received for achievement and from Dugway Proving Ground. I worked in Utah for a year. That was 2 years ago. I still pay North Carolina taxes. I
Sure.
always claim North Carolina as my home because if you understand the laws of residency, it's where you have a presence and where you intend to be. So I go above and beyond. How many people are, when they're not here paying North Carolina taxes? I do that. Um, the and now I work for the Army. But I've worked for DOD, and where they send me, I go. I've been out of country, but when I say I'm going to be committed to something, that's what I do. And if you look at all of the achievements, and that's what we really should be looking at. Look at the achievements. Look at the things. It's monumental, the things that I've been able to accomplish. And that's what it should be about. If the Attorney General says he's a resident of Jacksonville, wouldn't that be the end of that discussion?
Probably not.
Well, it ought to be. It ought to be. And then we ought to be able to talk about who can do what for the city of Jacksonville. Do you know why we have splash pads in the city of Jacksonville?
Splash pads, no.
That's for the children,
The
water.
entertainment, right.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Because I travel, because I see what other people do, other towns do. When I go to conferences, I'm talking to the vendors. The vendor that I talk to at a conference, and you all ask why is the city paying money for these people to go to Washington, D.C. and around the country for these conferences? Well, it's supposed to be about best practices. So if I'm learning what other cities are doing, if I'm talking to vendors about novel things, the vendor that I talked to, I think it was in Washington, D.C., actually sold us the splash pads. Okay, designed them and everything. And when we had trouble with the plumbing, if you will, we reached out to that person for continual consultation. And so that's the benefit of somebody who has worldwide knowledge. Don't make that a disadvantage. As long as the Attorney General says he's a resident, that's the ultimate authority in the state of North Carolina. So we spend 5 minutes of a conversation, and we could be talking about how can Jerome make the city better. But I don't have a problem addressing it. I'll address anything people want to talk about.
Okay. Some people would say that if you're not here 5 days a week, if you're gone 5 days a week after week after week, and you come in, and apparently that's what you used to do anyway.
That's right.
When you were in Maryland, you were gone during the week.
I wasn't in Maryland. I was here, but I worked in Maryland.
That was what I'm talking about. When you were working in Maryland, you'd slide into town whenever, and I think I checked your voting records on city council one time. You'd miss very few meetings.
Right.
I will tell you that. But how about the people during the week that can't find you or can't reach out to you? Citizens,
Okay.
you're not in contact with them on a daily basis, like, for instance, the mayor and some of the other council people,
Okay.
right?
That would be a factor if we didn't have telephones. That's usually how we mostly communicate. Now, as far as being in touch with the community when you're not at a meeting, you're right. I missed very few meetings, and because that was a sacrifice I chose to make, I think that should be respected. If I leave a meeting at 10 o'clock, and sometimes we go late, and I drive all night to be the first one at my job the next morning, and this is when I was working at Walter Reed, Army Medical Center, okay? And I worked 12-hour days so that I only worked 3.5 days, and I'm here for the other 3.5. That seems to be a very extreme degree of commitment to what you want to do. And how does that translate? It translates into the redevelopment that we've been able to do downtown. Okay, when you're committed and you talk about all these challenges, and we're talking about it now, would you think it takes courage to overcome those challenges or face those challenges? When you have to look at where I came from. I came from a hostile relationship, adversarial relationship with City Council because of the lawsuit. Okay. And that's what you're talking about when you start talking about the ward system. But look at the courage that was involved in that. When they say you can't take on City Hall, don't fight City Hall. Well, we did and we won. And then what was the result of that?
What was the lawsuit about? I came back to Jacksonville apparently after that happened.
It was of the election system. When you
Really?
start talking about
This was pre-ward system, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
It wasn't one, and we didn't have diversity on the council in the history of the city of Jacksonville in that regard. And so look at what it takes in the individual, because I keep trying to bring this back to the skills that it takes to be a city council person. Okay, that's the thread. I can weave it however you want to go. But look at what it takes to get from that point to the point where you ask anybody if they've been able to work with me for the progress of the city of Jacksonville. George Jones was the mayor at the time. Go ask him. Because eventually he came around and he said that this was one of the best things that happened to the city of Jacksonville, that we have this diversity of opinion. Nobody can tell you what it's like to live across the tracks if you haven't lived across the tracks. Okay? That's a perspective that you bring. When I came to council, across the tracks throughout the South was a dirty word. Okay? You don't go across the tracks. That was the demarcation line. And when the Marine Corps had its, I think, 75th anniversary, the parade, where did it end? Where did the parade end? Across the tracks. It ended in Riverwalk Crossing. Look at that evolution where you go from being off limits to the most desirable event, place, location in the city of Jacksonville. How did that happen? Okay, so I want to talk about the things that I have that make that happen. I work with Robert Sandy. Ask Robert Sandy what the working relationship is with Jerome Willingham. We made progress. We got stuff done. Robert Warden, I work with him. We got stuff done. You can go back through the council. Michael Lazar, ask him what it's like working with Jerome Willingham. It's not adversarial. It's consensus building. And that's what I do.
Okay. We need to take a break. We'll come back, and I'm sure these ladies have some questions for you, too. You're live and local, Real Talk, Freedom 97.1, 1120 a.m., WSME. We will be right back. Go. Running for city council, rerun for city council, Jerome Willingham, he's former city councilman, and running from Ward 1, the sort of the downtown area, plus a lot of Camp Lejeune. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of people aboard Camp Lejeune. They live in the city. They live in Ward 1. They could vote if they registered and they turned out and voted.
That's correct.
But they don't.
Right, but they don't vote in the congressional races either.
That's right.
I mean, they just don't vote.
They still get counted in those districts.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
But they vote back home. Many of them vote back home.
Or Florida and Texas, where they don't have income taxes, state income
That
taxes.
too, yeah. I think I'm going to give me a residence down in Florida, down in the Keys. Would
Put
be
it
great.
as your
Hey,
primary residence.
I just run my boat down there. I can live on my boat.
That's a thought.
There you go.
Then you can come back up here if there's any bad storms. I'm not allowed to say the H word.
No, we don't talk about that
Don't
around
talk
here.
about
Jerome,
those
what's the biggest issue facing Jacksonville today?
I think it's development. It just depends on how you couch it. If you
Development too much or too little? Or uncontrolled?
insufficient is the how I would describe it. I think that one thing that Randy Thomas always did, he reminded us that the new construction was mostly in the county and that we might be losing out on a tax base. Well, I look at it a little differently, because if you're doing infill new construction, the cost of utilities and infrastructure is less, because it's already there for the most part. And so we have a lot of areas that we need to concentrate on. You know, the hot topic was New River.
Oh,
okay,
yes, absolutely.
and affordable housing. So that's a big topic. But Georgetown probably has always felt that it didn't get the proper attention. And so there's so much that we can do, and we have a roadmap. We have proven how lucrative and downtown development, residential, we didn't do commercial,
Right.
but residential development, look at the tax base that's increased for downtown with the housing that we have, both affordable housing and luxury housing on the waterfront. And I have a record of being a catalyst, being involved in that. And, you know, I always have to make the disclaimer that we're in campaign season, we're going to talk about I did this, I did that. But one of the biggest qualities that you can have is being a consensus builder, someone who can get the majority of the council to go in a particular direction. And I think I've demonstrated that. And when we talk about development, just look at Riverwalk Landing. Well, it took Riverwalk Crossing when we did the infrastructure, tore up the whole area for the utilities, and we ran them there. We also ran them to Laguna Bay in Georgetown. And so, speaking of Laguna Bay, it certainly wouldn't have happened when it happened without my involvement. I facilitated the agreement between the Trent River Oak Grove Missionary Baptist Church and Bill Terrell. That land was landlocked. He couldn't develop anything on that land until that agreement, and I wrote the easement for that. And so there's a connection there with a group of people who may not even be aware of that history. And so it's important to let people know what you've done in terms of development. And we have a tremendous opportunity to do development in Georgetown with Dr. Thomas Hunter owning most of the waterfront property in Georgetown. And so it's just prime for development. And so when I talk about development, I'm talking about that. When I talk about development, I'm talking about downtown. Look what we did with Jacksonville Landing. Very much involved with Jackson. We're getting those dilapidated structures that were across from Marina Cafe on 24, right there at the Old Bridge Street, the Old Bridge and the New Bridge. Mm-hmm. Okay, look at that. Look how beautiful it is. It was unsightly before, but we can continue. What's happening with the Howard Johnson property that we bought at 24 and 17 and Court Street? What's happening with that? We need to move forward with a vision, and we can have a beautiful downtown. Town centers are popular. When I talk about downtown, all you have to do is look up Lincoln Road in South Beach, Miami, and you see how they closed Lincoln Road. And I'm talking about closing 3 blocks of Court Street and making it a pedestrian mall where you have Biagio's, for example, being able to dine al fresco. Al fresco dining is big. I was in Asheville, another travel, in Asheville, North Carolina, and they were dining all up and down their main street, al fresco, and people had coats and jackets on. That's in the mountains. That was cool. And we can't do it here, but we have such a beautiful climate all year round. Western Boulevard is our premium commercial location. A lot of businesses that would be very viable can't afford that and shouldn't even try. But if we had more opportunities on Court Street and downtown, it would be for small businesses to come in, mom and pop things, and we can have a variety of restaurants, and we could use this shared alfresco dining in the street.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to give us a call. Jerome will answer them. He's got his headsets on so he can hear you. 910-333-0139. And we need to take a break. You guys got some questions lined up, right? Very good. So hang in there. You're live in Local Real Talk. Don't go away. We will be right back. And we're back. Jerome Willingham is our guest in the studio this morning. Kelly?
Yeah, I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. So we've had an issue, I would say, in the last, quite a few years, but it's really come to light in the last year with low-income housing and the lack of it in this area. And now with the town center apartment brouhaha that has been brewing over, and I think these people have until June to relocate. What do you see as a solution, or at least a beginning of a solution for that problem? And I know there are a lot of people of lower income that are often have difficulty in the city of Jacksonville finding housing that's affordable for them.
Yes. And what we did with downtown residential development for that income, and I haven't seen a better program throughout the country for home ownership. 2 people making minimum wage could financially qualify. That, just wrap your thoughts around that. 2 people making minimum wage can qualify. You know, we work with their credit for a year. Okay, so the people in town center, they probably say, "Oh, that's fine for your single family development," but what if we still are not able to afford to buy? Okay, so that's a legitimate concern. We have not enough, but we have made tremendous gains in affordable housing. The problem is people have a preconception of what it should look like. And when they ride around town and they don't see what they think it should look like, they don't realize that all of the places that we have for affordable housing near Jacksonville Mall, one location just opened up. And I'm not trying to identify the locations because but we have that information at City Hall because we have to be able to market that also. But we don't own them. We partner, if you will.
Right.
And so on Western Boulevard is where they're located. Western Boulevard Extension, several complexes for affordable housing. Very nice. And I was with a reporter one time who was writing a story about it. And she says, well, you told me where to go, but I can't find the affordable housing. I said, okay, well, you meet me here. And we met up. And I said, I'll show you where it is. And she says, you are approaching my apartment complex. She didn't know that right next door was affordable housing because it looked that nice.
Correct.
But specifically about your question, we had a Abundant Life Outreach was the nonprofit that was building affordable housing within walking distance of New River. And this was around 2012, and it would have been online, operational when Hurricane Florence hit. So that's when Town Center got struck, and a lot of that damage at that time. That would have been up and operational. One of the council.
Why wasn't it?
We passed it. The city of Jacksonville approved the zoning and the use. One council person who didn't want it in that neighborhood sued. And HUD said, if they're going to fight about it, we're not going to fund it. So it didn't get done. But that would have addressed it.
Wait. Who was that?
Well, I don't
Oh,
know.
I'm going to do my research.
You have to
Okay.
do your research.
Because
But it-
I don't understand. Oh, my
Well,
goodness.
Government leaders, officials, city councilmen, county commissioners, yada, 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 you were included. Well, you weren't on council when you sued, right?
It depends.
Well, it's either yes or no.
When they sued
No, I
HUD,
sued
when they
twice.
sued-
I
Okay,
sued
when you
twice.
sued twice, okay.
For the election system, no, I was not on
Okay,
council.
that's what I thought. But
Okay.
why do
Why would
people
any
who are
city
elected
council
go to take it to a civil court
to
because
not have low income? Is there a
it's
bias?
just
Is
not,
there a
forget the bias part, but I mean, you're on a council with 6 other people. Why would you not gut along and do whatever
For your
the majority wanted to do?
citizens.
Isn't that what you took an oath to do?
Well, that sounds very biased
Okay.
to me.
Well,
Okay.
I would certainly like to hear
Is there some
other
prejudice going on?
councilmen
Like I'm going to find out who
talk
this
about
was.
that.
But it was
Go ahead.
it was
Sorry.
it was a big thing about it, and I got attacked by some friends because they didn't want that in their neighborhood, and
That sounds biased to me.
a council person felt the same way. But that's how, not in my backyard. It's a syndrome, and people don't want certain things right in their backyard. And so they're free to come out and talk about that. But, and I don't criticize that opinion if you don't. But I'm not going to share that opinion, and I'm going to stand up for affordable housing, and that's what I did.
I don't want drug dealers in my backyard either.
Right.
They actually, unfortunately, have a legal right to be there until they get caught.
Right. Right.
True.
Period.
Good point.
But just because affordable housing doesn't necessarily equate crime, and I think that's
No, it does
what
not.
they'd be trying to go with. So once again, this sounds biased. It sounds prejudiced. Like it sounds like a whole lot of things. I need to see if this person is still on the city council and if they're running. Okay.
But
Oh, my
but
goodness.
you mentioned that, and we have a model here, and that's downtown. And when Riverwalk Landing was constructed, if you ride by there right now, there is the assembly for a gate, and people thought it was going to be a gated community. What they realized was that there was no need for the gate, because we have a very safe community. In my backyard, there's no fence to separate the park. And a lot of the backyards, unless they have a dog, there's no fence. And literally somebody could walk from the park up to your back door. But that's how safe we feel. And so affordable housing in your neighborhood is compatible with $1 million homes and safety.
That's not the way it was in the 70s, of course. Were you here then?
I've been here since 55.
Okay.
You graduated from Georgetown High School, or was it Jacksonville?
Jacksonville.
Yes, okay.
Georgetown closed in 67.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah.
You're back in the 70s. Downtown Jacksonville, if you want to call it across the tracks or whatever you want to call it, was riddled with drug activity and prostitution.
Why?
You talking about the Court Street area?
Yeah, Court
Why?
Street
The
downtown,
bars and-
Court and Kerr. I
Why
don't
was it that way?
because they had a lot of military presence and they were catering to the military young people who were there wanting to do bad things.
That's part of it. But the major part, the major reason it was there is because the city of Jacksonville Police Department wanted it there.
Wanted it there?
Did you hear the silence?
No, I'm just saying wanted it there. I'm questioning, what do you mean they wanted it there?
I had discussions at City Hall. I had discussions with the police chief at the time. And what his attitude was that if it's there, we know where it is. And if we suppress it there, it'll go somewhere else. That's not an effective police strategy to me, and I fought against that.
I'm not sure who that chief was.
It's okay.
Was it Halbert or
It had to be Halbert
or
back
Cook?
then
It
in the
wasn't Cook.
70s.
It was Halbert.
Okay.
Yes,
Well,
And let me give
he
you-
wasn't there in the 70s.
Let me give you an example.
he was.
Yes, he was.
We came in the late 70s because Clyde Cook, I know when I left town, was chief.
But I came back in the Marine Corps in 84, 85. And after I got out of the Marine Corps is when I got involved in politics, and that'd been 88. Okay. So we're talking about the 90s, that period. There were defendants who would be finally arrested for a crime that happened 2 years ago that the police knew about. Okay?
Knew about the crime.
Yeah, selling drugs on the Court Street. Okay, why you let a criminal that you already have the evidence to bust them? Why you let that criminal stay on the street for over a year, continuing to do what they do? Because this is what they did. They would collect all these warrants, and then they would have a sweep. Well, in the sweep, where they go to that corner and arrest everybody, they get 30 people maybe.
Yeah, that was standard operating procedure.
But that looked like a big thing. But they were actually serving warrants and arresting people for stuff that had happened months ago.
Yeah, which is no problem with that.
Well, it is a problem.
No, it's strictly legal.
No, it's however they do it is legal. But what I'm saying is that you let them stay there. You let them stay in that community and continue to sell drugs. I represented defendants in Superior Court in the District of Columbia. They pick you up as soon as you sold the drugs. If you know police operations, what they would do is they got the undercover. After the sale, the undercover leaves the area. They watching everybody. They're watching the undercover because it's a chain of custody situation. And so the chain of custody, the undercover gets in the police car, and they bring him back around in a concealed car. And he identifies the person that sold him the drugs. That person's arrested then. You don't wait 6 months to arrest that person. Why? What are you waiting on? You're allowing them to damage this community for 6 months. And that's what we were dealing with at that time. And I'm not saying that's happening now, but you went back to the 70s, and I brought it to when I got involved in the 80s.
Okay. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back with Jerome Willingham right after our Fox News break. You're live and local, Real Talk on Freedom 97.1, 1120 AM, WDS.
Negative. I don't see how you defund the police. You talk about lawsuits, and I probably was labeled radical when I sued the city, but I sued the city over the U.S. Constitution, the Fourth Amendment. And what the city was doing, they drew a circle around my neighborhood. And they said, if you are in front of your house, if you are on the sidewalk, and two or more people and talking, you can be arrested. Okay.
On what charge?
loitering. Okay.
God, I've never been an arrest for loitering. Never seen anybody
Well,
make an
I
arrest
was
for loitering.
I was stopped 2 times,
Uh-huh.
and it resulted in a lawsuit against the city. We won $80,000, so it wasn't frivolous. Okay, so I'm going to stand up to protect the rights of the Constitution, and if the city or the state, whomever infringes against that, I'm going to stand up for that. And I think that that's the politician that I would want. And so in that instance, I did sue the city. They arrested me while I was on city council.
For what?
For that loitering law.
Loitering while you were on the council.
Yes, being in front of my house, it was two times. Once I was in front of my house, and once I had stopped at the corner of Court and Kerr Street to talk to a friend. And so those were the two incidents. And excuse me when I talk in general terms, I wasn't actually charged and taken to the station. You can be the violation of the Constitution can come from the stop, and you being searched and that sort of stuff. Okay. Now I was arrested for being on Northwoods Drive. I think there were some new homes, and my wife and I were looking at the new homes, and it was approaching dark, and the police officer said, "You don't look like you live here." Okay. And they said, "Your license are expired." So I was arrested. They took me to the magistrate's office. The magistrate said his license aren't expired. And the police officer said, "Do the paperwork." Okay. So when,
You talking about your driver's license?
right.
Was it expired?
No.
Okay.
No.
Why would they arrest you for that anyway?
Well, you can be arrested for not having a driver's license,
Sure,
but
sure.
but you shouldn't be stopped.
I know, but to arrest you and take you downtown?
But you shouldn't be stopped for being in any neighborhood because you don't look like you live there.
I agree
Well,
with
I
that.
agree
yeah.
with
Yeah,
that.
you're
Yeah.
not supposed to, that's
And
not,
I think if it happened to you all, you would stand up on those
Certainly.
Heck yeah.
issues.
Certainly.
And so, you know, Marshall Dotson wrote an apology, but we have these experiences when you come from a certain background. You have these experiences of false arrest, false accusations, and
Right.
these things. You know, the thing about the residency, the law was clear on that. It didn't have to go to the Attorney General. But what I say is this: I'm going to use the processes. And you started asking a police question, right? Defund the police.
Right.
Okay. We need the police, but if a police abuses power and people see that, what does it do? It tears down a belief in the justice system. We can't have that. So what we have to have are people being vigilant about their rights and protecting their rights and the rights of others, and the police using the proper tactics. I want the police in my community using the proper tactics. When I came up, we knew the police officers by name. My minister was a police officer at Reverend Rush, worked for the police, wore a gun, okay? That's how close I was to the police department. You might remember Joe Burkeen. We called him Tiny.
Brackeen,
Yes,
yes.
Tony, yes.
Tiny.
Tiny, yes.
He's a legend in my community. He was a neighbor, but his kids are my best friends. And so we want officer friendly. That's what we want in our community. Officer friendly.
Has the Jacksonville City Council ever looked into developing the area right around the bridge, for example, where the Fisherman's Wharf used to be, and then the location where the motel was, into like a downtown waterfront type with, area? I think that, could be very profitable if you go to other areas of the country that have waterfronts. Have they ever looked into that? Because nothing's been done there.
You're correct. And we have touched on it. When we bought the property from Howard Johnson, that's the property that you're talking about, the intention was to do
I remember that, yeah.
hotel complex.
Right, to
with-
bring in the,
They were going, even talked
The
about putting
ship,
like a
the
convention
boat.
center, a civic center, something like that. It was right there. I remember this vividly, and then nothing ever happened. So what's the deal?
That's a bad location for a civic center. There's not enough parking. There's not enough, there's not enough room.
And I do believe
You
it's
would
a
have
flood
very,
area
very
too.
limited amount of stuff that convention center could have.
Well, a convention center, that might have been overreaching. Okay, I agree with that. But I think you would agree. We invested, I think, $800,000. I think it should be developed.
Oh, absolutely should
And
be
so
developed.
that's where I'm taking your question. That fits right into what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about in terms of downtown commercial development. That closing of the street and having that pedestrian mall, that was just one part of it. But the other part certainly has to be, when we put the new bridge in, there's supposed to be a walkway that you can go under the bridge to get to the old Fisherman Wharf's property from the other side, from Jacksonville Landing, without crossing the street. That was part of the proposal.
know that.
And so that's what we need.
We do need that, yeah.
And we need to develop the Fisherman's Wharf part. I always liked where you have the overhead pedestrian crosswalks and how you can make that kind of romantic and magical as you enter the city and you come over the pedestrian crosswalk, come under it.
Yeah.
But there are opportunities right there because you take your disadvantage. Your disadvantage is that it's undeveloped. You turn it into an opportunity. That's less demolition that you have to do. It's less tearing down. The plan was to develop the waterfront behind the new courthouse. Once we moved the boat launch to Jacksonville Landing across the river, we were supposed to look at commercially developing that and whatever we needed to do to realign that Ann Street, I believe. And so that's still on the table. But what was really moving this was a committee that was formed with Commissioner Barbara Eichner and I can't think of the other county commissioner that was on the committee. He's still on the county commission, former policeman, Buchanan?
Buchanan.
Yes, Buchanan. We were working very well, and Michael Lazara. And then when they had the county election and Barbara Eichner didn't get reelected, it kind of disbanded, and we never got the group back together. But we had looked at it, and we had some plans that included the option that I'm talking about for the downtown area. But we definitely need to do that.
Well, yeah, I'm all about that, and I like outdoor dining. So I would definitely frequent something like that and having options where I could go.
What
from
about the
place to-
skeeters?
What's
I was
skiers?
just thinking about that.
The
You
what?
took the thoughts
Mosquitoes.
right out of my head.
I will be fine. I like outdoor dining. Bottom
Yes.
line, this way's about that.
That's the first thing I thought of, mosquitoes.
But no, when you come to
would be
National Night
nice.
Out,
Yes.
I know it's later in the summer, but I don't think it's, I don't.
I don't
recall a
remember getting
mosquito
bit up, and I've
problem.
worked that National Night Out for probably 15
I think they
years.
need to permanently move it to a fall date. It's
Yeah, but
always the hottest day
It's
of the
always
summer.
hot. Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
it is.
Always.
But see, it's done nationally.
Yeah.
Yes. Move
But
it
I mean,
nationally.
I think developing the waterfront into what it was originally talked about doing in some capacity, giving people the option of being able to go from, business to business. I mean, I wish we had something like, if you've never been to the waterfront in Oklahoma City or even in San Antonio,
Savannah,
something
Georgia.
like that, where
Great.
that's what I would love. And there's got to be some undeveloped area somewhere that could provide something like that. And I would love to see something like that here.
Well,
And
I
I
do-
do think we have the population to support it.
Why has the city not had city pools? At least one,
Yeah,
maybe
we
two
need a
or
city
three.
pool.
The
We had
city's
city
big
pools.
enough.
We had city pools.
You have city pools?
We had them.
Where are they?
We had 2 city pools.
Where?
They're underground right now. The city poured sand in them.
Where were they?
One was at Kerr Street and one was at Northwoods Recreation Center. One was at Kerr Street Recreation Center. One was at Northwoods Recreation Center.
Why did the city do that?
That was a consequence of integration, and they didn't want integrated swimming.
When
Oh my
was this?
goodness.
I thought it was the age of them. Because I remember the one at Northwoods Rec, and
Well,
that
then,
was really
okay,
super
if fine,
old.
but then if that's the case, then why have the city not explored that option again? We need a city pool. We need places for
We need
people to
one
go
big
to learn
enough.
to swim, for the schools,
Swim teams.
but for people to go, so, to have somewhere to go swim, a big enough pool.
That's the number one thing that when we do surveys, that's the number one request.
I would think so.
Yeah. I'm in favor of that. Right now, we do have a city pool, so to speak. Holiday Mobile Home City, we have
That's right.
Yeah.
an arrangement with them.
That's
Yeah.
an arrangement. That's not a city-owned pool.
No, it's not a city-owned pool. It's
And
more
look
of a,
where it is,
well,
on the outskirts of the city, right?
correct. You've touched a need, and we do need to do that. And hopefully, whether I'm there or not, with the acquisition of the property in Williamsburg, the 400 acres,
Yep.
Yes, that was going to be my
Well, we've
next
asked about
question.
that because some candidates have kind of alluded that, what was originally proposed may not be coming to fruition after all. And they've done that on this show. So I'm going to go ahead and say that. So, I mean, I have things I know that I'm going to vote for. And if I don't care who the candidate is, you need to listen to the people. And the people are saying they want a pool, bottom line. So for the local city leaders, you have to, even if you're not running now, you do have to run for reelection. People want this. And I think now people are really starting to get upset. So you might want to listen to your voting
We
base.
have been awakened.
Yes.
well, I just look at this as all things being possible. It just depends on who the players are. If you elect the right people, you get a pool. I've been on these involved in these issues where the public safety station, the 24 million, everybody on council didn't want that. Okay, some council persons were okay with the mold infested police station that Mr. Brown, you're familiar with. Some people were okay with that, and so it depends who the players are. If you elect the people that have the vision, that agree with the vision and commit to it, and I'm one, and it is overdue. I've been to places where the community rec has a indoor swimming pool that you can have competition, high school competitions at. We are behind as it relates to that. I'm afraid that I'm a former athlete. I have, much love. I coached as a volunteer for years in 3 sports, but a playing field, more softball, baseball fields. I don't think that's what the people want. I think
They want a pool.
they want the pool, and
They do want a pool.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, they want the pool.
Yeah.
That's obvious, yes.
I hear that a lot.
Jerome, anything else you want to tell us? Well, let me just put it to you this way. My final question that I ask a lot of people running for office,
He does this to
people that I used to hire, is there anything about you that I would learn after the election that would cause me not to vote for you in this upcoming election?
No, because you already know it. Come on, y'all.
We know.
I
Come
mean,
on.
is there anything else out there that we don't know about that would cause us to?
There's some good things I can't tell you about, given what I do, given the job I have.
I'm talking about the reasons, some things that would cause us not to vote for you, not something that causes us to
Let
vote
me
for
tell you, when I ran last time, I thought whatever we met at the forums and we talked about, those were the issues. Unbeknownst to me, there was this gossip campaign, and some of it went to he doesn't live here, and other things. I don't run a gossip campaign, but everything. I'm the most investigated person in politics, probably. Let me mention this: when people were saying, "Okay, I have a beach home in Virginia Beach." Okay.
I don't, but
Well, a lot of people do, and I guess they say, well, that's where he is. Okay. Now, when they were questioning my residency, I don't want to call names, but one councilman had a house in Swansboro. Okay. Other council people had beach homes in Emerald Isle. Okay. I can't have a beach home. So I just don't want the double standard in any of this. I don't want double standard in policing. I don't want the double standards in how we adjudicate candidates. And so what I have to offer that is unique is this consensus building, because anybody that can go from the adversarial relationship to where all these council persons are proud to have worked with you, I think that that's something that we need. And if I can show the courage, then even in the face of friends saying, you know, and all this emotional stuff about we don't want this, I stand up to do it because I'm going to commit. And everything about me has been commitment. You talk about travel, you want to talk about the travel, talk about what it took to get to these meetings. And when you say I didn't miss that many meetings, I didn't. And when I was the only one that I remember, the mayor has an office at City Hall. And I said that we should all have offices. It could be a shared office for the council persons. And they were supposed to structure that in the public safety building. So we had offices. But you need to be able to meet your constituents on government property. Everything shouldn't be closed door and that kind of thing.
agree with that.
Nothing wrong with me talking at a restaurant, but if you want to talk city business to me, let's go to City Hall because
Well, I have a question coming off of that. Okay, we know that your legal residence is right there in Ward 1, but your mailing address is in Utah. So I assume that you work in Utah?
no, I haven't worked in Utah in well over a year,
So why would your mailing address be Utah?
so that I could get my voter information from the Board of Elections when I worked in Utah. That's how you do it. If
So
you,
it's still there, but you don't use
no,
that
it's
address.
not. It's not there.
You don't use that address.
No, I can't. I can't get anything if it goes to Utah.
I understand.
Well, I know that,
At one point, it was.
yes.
Because
Because that's
told
where I
you,
was confused too.
all those medals I got.
Yeah.
That
So
was
technically,
from Utah.
are you living in Jacksonville now 7 days a week?
Yes,
Oh, okay. All right.
but I don't commit to living in Jacksonville 7 days a week. I don't commit to not having a beach house. I don't commit to not going.
Oh, well, we understand beach houses and,
okay, I don't
you know,
commit
other-
to not going to Europe if I feel like
right,
it, if I can
right.
afford it.
I just wanted to
But what I commit to-
clarify that.
I commit to working harder than anybody else to get better results than anybody else. That's what I commit to. And that's how we want to grade people on the service that you do.
So the last census, the 2020 census, you filled it out as living right here in North Carolina, correct? Jacksonville.
I'm pretty sure, I don't know. I don't remember what happened since then. But what does the income tax mean to you? Why am I going to pay income tax in North Carolina if I don't live there? I'm not.
That's right, yes.
I'm not wealthy.
Right.
Okay. I didn't pay income tax planning to come on this show and convince you that I'm a resident.
Well, I know there's just been a lot of controversy about that, which is starting up again. That's why I asked.
And I'm thankful that you've given me the opportunity to address it. But if the Attorney General says this is where he lives, I think that ought to go a long way towards resolving any controversy. And I don't want to get into explaining the law of residency, but
Well,
I want
we
to
pretty much know what that is.
I want to
don't we?
be subjected to and benefit from the same laws as anybody else.
Gotcha.
So
yes.
And even on my Facebook campaign page, I address it because like I said, I didn't know that was a problem when I ran last time. This time, people mentioned it to me based on
Get ahead of it.
the last
That's right.
election.
Right.
And so I don't mind talking about it. I don't want it to be the only thing I talk about it because when I tell you, and you can go look up what the Attorney General said about how I was operating, and you know that I have a residence here. How many nights I'm in my bed, you know.
Just asking because it just bit Mark Meadows. So
Well, that's a whole different.
Yeah.
This is a different situation. I'm from the soil here.
Right.
Okay, and always been connected here.
Jerome, thank you. Thanks for taking the time this morning, sir.
Okay.
thank you for coming
and if
in.
anything comes up,
thanks.
give us a call too.
I've enjoyed it.
We have too. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
We got a little news here that's been breaking since last night over in Duplin County in Warsaw at the Mario's Used Auto Parts. At least 12 crews over there have been over there most of the night fighting